Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and welcome to my astrology channel. On this video, I'm going to be talking about the month ahead, December 2020, for Leo. Now, you may know that I like to get into some technical detail, not only because I think it makes more sense of the astrology, but I also think it kind of reinforces the idea that things aren't just happening to us randomly. There's some kind of order in the cosmos, and I think astrology does that really, really well. So here is my way of putting us in touch with what's going on, and it's my little circle of the zodiac. And the important thing here says Leo there, but it's from Leo's perspective, and that is a sign of Leo here. And so all the planets that are going to be moving through the zodiac during December are sort of grouped, not exactly in the opposite section to Leo, but they're certainly over in this quadrant here. So in a funny kind of way, we're looking at a period of time, and this may have gone on really since the beginning of November, where you sort of felt that your life isn't your own. Now, that could be for a variety of reasons. There's just so much going on that you've had to be at everybody's beck and call. But it can also be because you don't get to make the decisions. Other people, governments, whoever it is making the decisions, and somehow you're reacting to it. And I have to say, that's a very, very uncomfortable space for Leo to be in. You like to run the show, you like to know what's going on, then you're comfortable and you can be your sunny Leo self, but you can be very out of your sunny Leo self when you can't really grab the reins of control. But this is a nice thing about astrology. All this is going to change. Eventually, everything's going to swing back into your control again. And there's a lot to be learned when sometimes you don't have a big say in things. It's learning how to be a proudful Leo and to really affirm yourself and your talents and your being, even in a climate where you haven't got control of the board. So let's look here. Let's go to December and look at the most important thing that's happening in this whole month, and that is the total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Now, that happens on the 14th of December, and it is linked to or has a relationship with the lunar eclipse, which happened on the 30th of November. These two things are connected. The lunar eclipse with the idea of closing up things, of tying up loose ends, finishing something, and of course the total solar eclipse with starting new things, starting a new phase, a new cycle. And when it's a total solar eclipse, my goodness, that is a very impressive new beginning. Now for you, this is happening in the 5th house of your solar chart, and that's an area to do with creativity. Now, creativity has a lot of expressions, and sometimes I'm working with clients and I'll mention the idea of them being creative, and they'll say, oh, no, I'm not creative. But you can be creative with finances, you can be creative in the kitchen, and yes, you can be creative with how your home looks, or you can be creative with a paintbrush and and writing and all those kind of more artsy things. So this new moon, this total solar eclipse, may bring forward that idea of beginning a new chapter in which your creativity is up front. But of course, creativity can be pro-creativity as well. So we could be looking at the idea of pregnancy and birth and delivering a baby. And even if that's not yours, you could have a member of the family. So you're going to be a godparent or an aunt, an uncle, or a grandparent, or you've got a close friend who's about to have a baby. So this idea of new little people coming into the world is really important around this total solar eclipse. But of course, what else has a new beginning and a development and a gestational period? Well, that's a romance or a relationship. So some Leos are going to be starting a very, very important new relationship. I mean, it may just have begun. It doesn't necessarily have to come in bang on the day of the 14th of December. I mean, if it does, that's really reinforcing the idea that this relationship will change your life. But I think we need to be a little bit fluid with the eclipses. They have elastic timelines forward and back. So you could have met someone even 6 weeks ago, but it's still part of this total solar eclipse. This is still something that's going to have a really important effect on your life. And of course, sometimes with total solar eclipses in this area of the horoscope, you begin a new romantic phase in an existing relationship. So there's lots of good things to look at in the sites of this eclipse. The other thing that I must remember to tell you, though, is that there's always something in shadow at an eclipse. And we think of what that solar eclipse looks like. And if you're very keen on looking at eclipses, as long as you've got the right kind of lens through which to look at them, and in this case, if you're in South Africa or South America, when you'll be able to see it, there's something rather remarkable about the face of the sun being blacked out. And then as you gradually see the flames or the sun peeping out again as the eclipse passes over, it's quite an awe-inspiring experience. And really, that's why, we understand that eclipses are awe-inspiring in their effects. And of course, even though I'm talking about the fifth house of creativity, that total solar eclipse could be somewhere in your natal chart elsewhere, and it still brings into being the idea of a very new and big and important chapter of life. Now, if I come back earlier in the month, we can see that Venus will be in the fourth house. So there may be a lot of things going on with the family at this point. Maybe there's even news of a family wedding or a family celebration that's linked to something rather special. It's going to take place within the family or on the home front. And of course, it's at this time, Thanksgiving, coming up to Christmas, that we do think about family gatherings and things that we do to celebrate the occasion. And Venus being here means there are some really, really nice arrangements. And maybe you're also making the home look particularly beautiful, or you're thinking about improving the home and maybe buying new furniture or doing something else that's going to make a difference to your four square walls. I would also say there's a lot of love on the home front, and you can interpret that any which way you want. But if you feel that love is a bit of a missing element in the family or on the home front, Venus is your signal to really work at it, really bring the love factor to bear on the home front. Also, in this first couple of weeks of December, Neptune is a very prominent figure. And Neptune is here. That's Neptune's trident. It looks like a fork. And it's squaring up to planets in this area of the horoscope in Sagittarius. So there is a lot of mystery, lies, and deception going on. And you want to take that in terms of what you're seeing happening on the world stage, or in your community, or around and about you. Not everything that you're being told and not everything that you can see is the truth and the whole truth. And that's really important to bear in mind, because if you do believe something that's not true to be true, you go forward making plans and judgments based on that. So check everything out. And also because Neptune is in the area, or one of the areas I associate with finance, you to be particularly careful of financial transactions. Don't go jumping into things because they sound good, or you feel if you don't, you'll look weak. Don't. Examine things very, very carefully. And especially online, it'll be very, very easy to make mistakes with transactions and to make mistakes with interpretation. And if something does go really wrong in this first 2 weeks of December, something, check the facts out. What it may be may not be exactly as it's presented. And it's very well worthwhile looking at the backstory to certain things that happen. And, sometimes around the time of an eclipse, things can happen that you're not necessarily thrilled about. And I would recommend really exploring the reasons behind it And, before you assume, black is white, so to speak. Or do you know what I mean? Assuming it's red, that's what I mean. So coming forward a little bit more, we come to the 17th of December. And on the 17th of December, Saturn, the planet we can see here, enters Aquarius, your opposite sign. 2 days later, on the 19th of December, Jupiter enters Aquarius, enters the 7th house of relationships. And the moon on the 17th accompanies Saturn into this area of your horoscope. Now, Saturn is going to be working its way through the 7th house in the next 2.5 years. So it's a long transit. Jupiter, on the other hand, is just going to be there for the next year. And they mean very different things. And I will go into these sort of things in more detail in your year ahead, which you can get if you go to my website online. But the fact that the moon ushers in Saturn, it's almost as though it comes in on a wave of feeling. And it's going to be very interesting, not only to see what happens in your life at that time and whether there is this kind of wave of feeling as I describe it, as to also you may get a real sense impression of what Saturn and Jupiter are going to mean as they make this journey through your 7th house. It is a time to consolidate relationships. So, we've talked about new starts and new cycles, and we've talked about romance here. And this is a really good sign that something big is going on in terms of your relationships. It may be happening in the December, but certainly as we go through next year, there's going to be a lot of developments with relationships. And if you're listening to me and you're single or heartbroken, take a look at Jupiter here. Try to see Jupiter in the night sky, because that's going to bring in compensations. And I think even though Saturn has a bit of a poor reputation in the 7th house, and it can bring restrictions in relationships, and you may even find out you're taking responsibility for your partner because perhaps your partner's out of work, or maybe something else has happened to your partner and you have to be the superior. Well, of course, we all know you're a Leo, you're the more superior partner. But what I mean is that the responsibilities are resting more on your shoulders. But that's all to come. That's not necessarily a part of this December, although with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on the 21st, it may be all these things that I'm talking about may be really, really relevant to this late December period. I'm going to scoot up here to Mars now. Mars in Aries. Mars has been in this sign since July the 1st of this year. It's been there for 6 months. Now, normally, when Mars is going through this area of your chart, it would be a really, well, would it be a pleasant experience? But what it would be is that it would inspire your thirst for adventure and for wide horizons and travel and exploring all sorts of things you've never been or done before. And this is a beautiful area of the chart to have Mars in. But unfortunately, this past 6 months, Mars has been facing off all the time with Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter. And that's meant it's been a period of great frustration for a lot of Leos. All those high hopes you've had have been frustrated by life and other people. Doesn't mean you haven't got somewhere, doesn't mean you haven't even traveled, but my goodness, they've been done with some hardship attached to it. So Mars is on its way out of this area. It's going to enter Taurus in early January. But before Mars does leave, it makes this final square to Pluto here. And that's like the final, I was going to say the final curtain, but it's not the final curtain. It's kind of the final piece of the puzzle. You've been through so much with these Mars squares, and Mars square Pluto is the last one. So a lot of wrapping up is done. A lot of things are getting completed and closed. Love that kind of expression. But it's also a time of tension. And given that this Mars-Pluto square is at its strongest on Christmas Eve, it's, the perfect time to have some kind of upset within the family or over Christmas, or to have the weather or something intervene with the smooth running of that period of the year. The thing is, Leo, I'm giving you a heads up here that things are a little bit tense and they're likely to be, something could go wrong at this time. So have backup plans. If you're going to be cooking a giant turkey, why not have some kind of other means of cooking it other than the oven, just in case, or having some alternative Christmas meal? It's that kind of thing. It's looking for backup plans. And remember too, if somebody does prove to be very difficult around this Christmas Eve time, try to bear with them. It's part and parcel of everything that's, happened over the year. It's the kind of final point where you feel, oh, I can't take any more of this. A lot of people are going to feel like that. And so just being understanding can do remarkable things, and relationships can actually grow through something like this rather than fall apart at the seams. Last but not least, we're looking at this full moon, sun in Capricorn, moon in Cancer, 6th, 12th houses. That happens on the 30th of December, so just coming up to New Year's Eve. And I think that's a really nice thing to end on, and to think that the year is sort of ending on that full moon, because it's as though we're done. 2020 is done. We're so over 2020 and we're ready for something new. And when we think about Jupiter and Saturn going into Aquarius, and we think about that full moon at the end of 2020, it really is written in the stars, this idea that we've done that and we face new territory in 2021. So thank you for watching, and I hope you got a lot out of it. At least you might be able to plan your December better, knowing where the PowerPoints are, and also being able to look at those things that happen with this kind of reflection of the astrology. When we understand a process that's going on, it makes things so much easier to handle. So I look forward to being here for you on my next monthly, which will be January 2021. And of course, my twice monthly videos based on the new moon and full moon cycle. Bye for now.